For many of you who have been down this rabbit hole trying to make sense of this distorted reality because your entire world was shaken and you were trying to search for answers, and you're the type of person that's a truth seeker, someone who wants to get to the bottom of things, someone who wants to understand reality because everything shifted in the last few years for you. However, you may be in a situation where you're stuck within that doom and gloom because a lot of what you uncover through this process is very dark and miserable. Something that can fill you with so much of hopelessness, so much of gloom, without any positive outlook for life, constantly anticipating something to happen that could shake reality even further, that could potentially even place you in a worse off predicament, and you end up living this life with this doom and gloom scenario. If you're new to my channel, welcome to the Open Mind Project. If you're watching this channel, you're probably someone who recognizes that there are distortions in reality. And a lot of what we were fed through the conventional system has actually kept us in a state of illusion. And as you awaken to this, you may have found yourself in the state of doom and gloom. I want to share with you my experience and things that I'd wished I had known earlier so I would not have found myself entrapped for such prolonged periods of time within these very negative vibrations, feeling in that state of hopelessness. In my path, I ended up going down this rabbit hole in search for trying to understand our reality ever since the so-called scandemic. And during this time, I struggled to find people that I could resonate with. I struggled to find people that could understand and similarly be interested in wanting to find out more, wanting to recognize what is the reality within which we live. Why are certain things taking place? Why is it that there are so many people who are just living oblivious to this? And I found myself in a very isolated predicament during that time. And when we find ourselves in these type of situations, without having anyone to connect or resonate with, you can feel very much in a state of misery, in a state where you almost reach that point where you start to question your very existence. What is the purpose that I'm living here? Why is it that I've awoken to this reality? However, I don't have anyone that I can resonate with. I don't have anyone that I can talk to about this. And you start to go deeper and deeper in the space, and you start to uncover more and more of the dark aspects of this reality. And you recognize how humanity is being played by a structure, or some may call an overlay, by this very system within which we are operating. And it very much feels like this Matrix movie, with the exception that you've taken the red pill. However, you still don't have that support system around you, and no one in your field of existence is willing to recognize or appreciate your perspective. And this can be a very hard time to get through, and it can be something that can fill you with a lot of anxiety, not knowing how to plan for the next day, always being in that state of misery, state of doom and gloom. You sort of lose that vibrancy in life, lose the passion for a lot of what you enjoyed before. And this is the part where I think we need to recognize that it's not serving us to stay within that position. And I recognize that a lot of this fills us with anxiety, because once you recognize all that is transpiring, and maybe we haven't even uncovered everything, but whatever we have uncovered thus far leaves us in that state of, wait a minute, my reality has shifted, and I find myself very isolated in this type of predicament. However, it's about finding the positivity, finding the ultimate goal in life, moving towards the spiritual aspects of life that is going to provide that salvation, that is going to provide that almost like a lifeboat when you're in that type of situation. Because it's through the spiritual part that you will then awaken to the possibility of a better future. It's only through that faith and that seeking of the divinity within you, as well as the divinity within each and every one of us, that you start to move towards a position where you start to open yourself up to love. You open yourself up to compassion. And it's something that requires a lot of work, a lot of inner work to try and open ourselves up there. And I'm not yet at that stage, so I'm not preaching to you as some sort of guru who has all this figured out. However, I'd wished someone could have told me sooner to not stay within that predicament of doom and gloom for that long extended periods of time, and to start to gravitate towards the spiritual aspects and recognize true spirituality, to start to see things in a different light. Because when you do go down the rabbit hole, you start to recognize the manipulations in religion, in faith, and this can destabilize us. It can put us in a position where the very core beliefs that were holding you together have started to disassemble and break down and leave you feeling vulnerable, because you no longer have that core structure that was previously sustaining your faith. However, it's about now trying to find the real truth, the real essence in spirituality, and a lot of it can tend to be a very isolated exercise, stuff which you need to reflect on. However, to bring in that faith, to bring in that presence of God, to anchor in that presence of God within your life, to recognize true spirituality, what is the essence, to start going back to the scriptures, but to read between the lines, to read deeper within the meanings, to read past many of the so-called distortions. And even though we may have read these texts in the past, new interpretations and new aspects come to your awareness, and this is where the magic happens. And I'm not saying like I'm there yet. Like I said, I'm not the guru who has figured everything out. I'm still on this path. However, I'd wish that somebody would have come to me sooner and shifted my life path towards the path of spirituality, so I didn't get trapped within that state of doom and gloom for so long. So if you're someone who's finding yourself within that state, it's about turning to that divinity within, starting to see things in a totally different perspective, to recognize that you can't dwell on the darkness that is within this rabbit hole. And I know I'm speaking in riddles because I don't want to trigger many of these algorithms that tend to shadow ban my channel, but I find that many of these sort of alternative media channels tend to stay too much on the darkness, tend to put too much faith within political leaders that they think are their savior. However, when we relinquish that power from within and place it within a politician, it's not really going to provide that hope, because it's a false sense of hope. We need to be turning to the divinity within. We need to be turning to the God essence and the source and the ultimate God, rather than putting that power in outside of ourselves, outside of the divinity. We need to recognize divinity within each and every one of us. However, not put our power in the hands of politicians to save the day. Because I know a lot of what is being promised right now may sound very appealing and may give you that sense of hope. However, if you've been down the rabbit hole, you recognize that these structures have been compromised. And though they may promise a lot of hope, I will only believe it when I see the actions that actually result in a better life for all, where every person is taken care of, where the structures that were keeping humanity enslaved really break down. Because I don't buy into both sides, because it's the very structure that's compromised. And for those who have been down the rabbit hole, some will recognize that we are in this polarity verse, or what some may call this world of duality, that results in people taking sides and putting their faith outside of themselves into the hands of other humans or entities. So this is ultimately where we need to reach. I know I may offend people who are leaning a certain direction, and I don't mean that. I don't mean to kind of push you away from recognizing that there's more to it. But if you want to go deeper and you want to understand the truth, you have to take that power back. You have to recognize the divinity within. You have to anchor in that presence of God within your life. And even though it's quite a difficult process in itself, it calls for a lot of self-work. And the more we take on that self-work, the more we can find that the light starts to shine, although there may be so many difficulties that we may encounter, it leaves us with a sense of hope rather than being caught within that trap of doom and gloom. So as always, I hope this video was helpful, and with that, I'll see you in my next video.